Hi and welcome to Teach Start, and today we're going to be talking about how to deal with swearing in the classroom. Now hopefully not by the teacher but by the students. So swearing is something that all schools that I know of absolutely don't want in the classroom or at all in their schools. Some schools are very strict with swearing with quite severe sanctions. Some schools kind of are a bit of a slap on the wrist, and I think it depends on what kind of school you go to as to which one of those there are. But in the classroom, as a teacher, you're ultimately responsible for monitoring it. And if there's a school policy, obviously this video is not saying don't follow the school policy, always follow the school policy, because that's part of the professional agreement that we have with the schools we work at. However, if you're in a school that's a bit kind of looser with school policy, that there's not a if you hear this, give that, then what do you do? I would always say to people that you must have a zero tolerance in your classrooms with swearing. That doesn't mean 10 hours of detention every time you hear a rude word. It does mean pick it up and don't ignore it. There are some situations where you might want to ignore it if there's bigger fish to fry, if there's a situation happening that you need to address in a different way. For instance, I've had students who are really have anger issues, really difficult issues with anger, and they start effing and blinding. And so the way I deal with that is follow a kind of plan that the school have of removing them from the classroom, getting them to a certain staff member to calm down, and just go through that route. And obviously students with Tourette's, etc., obviously there's going to be a different situation. However, on the normal kind of students using swear words in just everyday conversation, I always pick it up, and I think all teachers should. And the way of doing it, unless there's a school policy, the way of doing it is just saying to students, I don't want to hear that language, or I don't want to hear that language in front of me. What you say in the playground to your friends is up to you, but when you're in my classroom in front of me, I don't want to hear it. And I think that you've got to be, as a teacher, really strict with that, because if I'm an observer coming in and watching your lesson, and students are openly swearing at each other, in conversation, then I would definitely pick that up with the teacher, that's not acceptable in the classroom. And it's something that some students in their homes, they use swear words all the time with their parents. I've met quite a few students who don't understand that it's not a good word to use. Obviously, if they're shouting at someone, then they know the line there. But in everyday conversation, just slipping the rude words, the swear words into a sentence, they don't even think anything of it. And I think as a teacher, you need to try and be a role model where, when they leave school, they're going to apply for a job. And if they're having a conversation with someone who they're trying to get a job from, then slipping the F-bomb in the middle of a sentence is not going to go down well in most job interviews. And it's just about training them to be better people and understanding that in front of someone formal, which you are as the teacher, you are someone who is higher than them in the hierarchy, who is kind of a person who is professional, and so very similar to the person at the job interview, very similar to a formal person in those students' lives, that you shouldn't be swearing. And I think you need to be kind of zero tolerance on it. I personally don't overreact. I think a couple of times where students have been repeat offenders, I have kind of said, well, if I hear that again, this is what's going to happen. But I do have a certain sympathy for some students, because I think they genuinely don't know that they're doing it. And they're not doing it with malice, they're not doing it because they're being naughty, they just are slipping into everyday conversation. But do pick them up for it. Even if you don't sanction them for it, do pick them up for it every single time. And so occasionally, if I'm in the middle of something and I hear across the room, and I'm not quite sure maybe exactly which student it was from, I'd kind of give them a look, and make darn sure that they know what the look's about. And they always do, and they always look at me and go, ooh, Whoops. And I think that it's something you just can't ignore, and I think it's something if you do ignore, it just becomes worse. And I think if as I said, if you've got someone who's a guest maybe to the school who comes into your classroom and hears that, or Ofsted for instance, come in and hear that, it's not very good. It really is not very good. So please do not overreact unless your school system is to absolutely sanction and stamp down on it, but don't ignore it. And I know some teachers who do, and it doesn't improve unless you intervene. And you don't have to be nasty. You just say, look, in front of me, I don't want to hear that. You say that outside, but not in front of me, please, thank you, or whatever. Thank you. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you want to see more from us, please click subscribe. We release videos every single weekday at 5 o'clock in the evening. Thank you.